Shalom. I'm Rabbi Nathan Davidovich, speaking to you on behalf of the webyeshiva.org, speaking to you from Efrat, Israel. I'm going to talk about this week's Torah reading, Parsha Pinchas, and the message we learned from this about Thanksgiving, about giving thanks for the little things in life, as well as the military victories. Sometimes we tend to think that we're in control of everything, and if we have a military victory, as we just had in Israel over Iran a few weeks ago, it was our great technology that did it. We're missing the boat. And this little discussion that we're going to have will show you how the Torah sees it otherwise, and that everything that happens is only run by God. First of all, the Parsha starts with God telling Pinchas, the grandson of Aaron, telling him that in return for his standing up, thinking outside of the box, taking an act that nobody else would think of, was afraid to do, he actually saved the children of Israel. His actions saved them from total destruction. And as a result, in this week's Torah reading, Hashem says to Pinchas, Lachein emor hineni nosei lo es brisi shalom. Therefore, I am telling you, I will give you the covenant of peace. Shalom, peace. The end of the chapter, after enumerating 70 different offerings that were brought on behalf of the nations of the world as they existed at that time, and representing all of the nations of the world, the very end ends with the following sentence. Elu taseh Hashem b'moadechem. You should offer to God at the stated times the milvad nidvosech v'hosechem abonosei b'nechosechem v'nizkehem v'shlamechem. Meaning you should offer your various offerings, burnt offerings, meal offerings, and offerings of shlamim, of shalom, of peace offering, which are thanksgiving offerings. Now the quality of peace, of shalom in the world is indescribable. Shalom means that not just the end of wars, not just the end of fighting, but it means being complete, being a whole person with yourself, with your other human beings, and with God. Rabbi Yehuda says, in reference to the peace offering, the offering of shalom, he says, whoever brings this offering, maybe shalom olam, call him maybe shalom, maybe shalom. Whoever brings a peace offering really brings peace to the world. And by that he means, when you're giving thanks to God, you are bringing peace to the world. Rabbi Davidovich has an interesting take on the language of the last sentence. It says, you shall offer these to God, and then it lists the burnt offerings, and then ends with the meal offerings, and then the shlomim, the peace offerings. And he says, in reality, in terms of the order in which things are given, the burnt offerings should be listed first. They should be listed rather at the end instead of the shlomim. The shlomim, which is not seemingly is not as important as the burnt offerings. The burnt offerings had to burn all day long, the korban tamid. And he asked for why is that order? And he says the reason for this is that the concluding language is to teach a very important character trait by talking about peace offerings. And he says, and he points out, the Rabbi points out that the greatest and concluding blessing of the priestly blessings is the blessing of peace, of shalom. So he said that's why the peace offerings are mentioned last. And then he points out that the Torah, in listing the 70 offerings for the nations, teaches us that each nation thinks that it has its own force and is able to control certain things. Ultimately, every force of a nation, every force of one of us, is really subservient to a higher force, which is God. And as it says, as King Solomon says in Kohelet, there is nobody higher than God who watches above the people. And the Midrash Tanchuma says a very interesting thing. He says the language of this sentence is you shall offer, not that you have offered. The Torah just went through a listing of the things we've offered, but yet the last sentence says these are the offerings you should offer. So the Midrash Tanchuma quotes Rabbi Hanina, who says that the reason for it's being said in the future says that you should continue to make your offerings in the years to come, and that a person who completes an erection of a new home or purchases new vessels or has other good things happening to him should make a blessing on that occasion, should say thanks. The korban shlomim, of course, one of the offerings of the shlomim, peace offering, was the korban toda, the offering of thanks. Recognizing that everything comes from God is exemplified by a beautiful story that Rav Shia Biederman just brought down about an inauguration in Chelm, in the city of Chelm, of a new train station. And everybody was excited that Chelm finally made it onto the map, had a train station of its own, and the first train was due to arrive at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and a large crowd gathered at the new train station to see this historic event. They had never seen a train before. But there were a group of intellectuals in Chelm. We know that Chelm was a city with great intellectuals. They decided that instead of staring at the train, they wanted to find out how a train works. So they went to the house of Reb Zemela, who was the mayor of the town, the smartest person in town. And they thought that he surely would be able to explain to them, but he wasn't there. He finally got home at 3 o'clock, all sweaty and exhausted. And he told his visitors he was returning from the train station where he went to understand the workings of the train. And he says, the people say, that's why we came to you. We want to find out how the train works. So he says, thank God I understand 95%. There's still some minor details I don't understand, but I figured out 95%. Then he tells him the story. He says, I saw the train, a giant piece of iron with large wheels. But I looked for the horses that would pull the train, and I couldn't find any. So I went over to the conductor, and I said, where are your horses? He shouted rudely at me. He told me to leave him alone. So I said, you don't know who I am. I'm the mayor of this town. I'm not a regular person. He wasn't impressed. He shouted at me again to get away, so I did. And I studied the train from a distance, and I was able to solve the mystery. I saw the train had many wagons with metal cables connecting the wagons. Wagon number 19, for example, was connected to 18, 18 to 17, and so on. Now I understand how the train works. Each wagon is pulled by the wagon in front of it, and in turn it pulls the wagon behind it. So 95% of the mystery I figured out. I just don't know how the first wagon moves. And this person thinks he understands, but he doesn't know how the first wagon moves. He understands nothing at all. And the important lesson is when we have a war, as we have had here, and we are having here, when a war is won, some say it is thanks to sophisticated and powerful weaponry. Some give credit to a third country, in this case the United States, that helped. But they're not seeing anything at all. They're like this mayor in Helm, who saw how wagon 19 is pulled by wagon 18. We have to remember that wars and their outcomes are determined by the locomotive, which is run by Hashem, run by God, the sole power in the universe. And this is relevant not only in wartime, not with major things, but with everything that happens to you. Do not think, my power, my strength did this. All this from the power of God. Thank you for listening on behalf of the webyeshiva.org. I wish everybody a Shabbat Shalom.